Hello. So today's interview problem is going to be another common one, um, which is detect if a string or an array of items, like numbers, um, is a palindrome. And this is a pretty common interview question. I know I've been asked it before, and there's a bunch of different ways to do it. So today I'm just going to start with the checking if a sequence is a palindrome, and then later on I'll get into the other questions like find the longest palindrome in a string, the longest palindrome subsequence in a string, um, or an array of numbers or something like that. So yeah, today is just going to be checking if a sequence is or is not a palindrome. So like I said, there's a few ways to do this. I'm doing this in Python as usual. Um, but there's an iterative way, there's a recursive way, and there's probably, several different variants of ways to do this problem. But basically, the way that I approached it for the recursive version, basically your base case is if you have a sequence and the sequence has zero or one items in it, that's going to be a palindrome because it reads the same way. A palindrome, it reads the same way left to right and right to left. Um, so if there's only one item in the sequence, then it's automatically going to be a palindrome. So that's the base case. Um, and if if it only has one item, then you're going to return true. Otherwise, basically, the approach that I've taken for the iterative and the recursive versions of these is you're going to check if the first and the last item are equal, and if they are, then so far it's still a palindrome. So for the recursive version, basically we just say if the first item, so we have our base case, which is if the array only has zero or one items, then it is a palindrome. And then if the first item in the sequence and the last item in the sequence are not equal, then you're going to return false because it's obviously not a palindrome. And then, so recursively, otherwise you you recursively go through the sequence and just chop off the first and the last items in the sequence. So you recursively go through your sequence, chopping off the first and the last item. And then if ever, the first and the last item in the subsequences is not equal, then you don't have a palindrome. And if it goes through the whole sequence and never returns false, then it is a palindrome. So I have that, and that is the recursive version of this. So then the iterative version of this, the way that I did it, it was pretty much the same as the recursive way, except I used a while loop and initialized. So basically, I have the sequence, and I initialized the start and the end indexes to 0 and then -1, because -1 is the end of the last item in the list. And calculated the halfway point, the length of the sequence divided by 2, and I said while the start index is less than or equal to the halfway point. Basically, you have your base case again. If the length of the sequence is 1 or 0, then it's going to return true. But if the length of the sequence is greater than 1, then I start comparing the element at the start of the sequence to the element at the end. And if that's true, then I increment the start index by 1 and decrement the end index by 1. So they kind of increment and then come together at the halfway point. And then if all of those have come back true, then the function returns true that it is a palindrome. But if ever you have the sequence at the start not equal to the sequence at the element at the end of the sequence, then it's going to return false. So that is how to find a palindrome. So thanks so much for watching this video on detecting if a sequence is a palindrome. I will be back with more similar interview videos, and hopefully one of these days I will get around to getting a whiteboard. Until then, I guess it'll just be in the code editor. And then also, obviously, the code is on GitHub, and yeah, and if you have any ideas for other interview problems to tackle, just give me a shout out. All right, until next time, thanks. Bye.